Welcome to Tent Talks. I'm Missy.
And I'm Mariah. I'm a certified nurse midwife, and I'm a mom of 3 children, 7 and younger.
I'm a mom of 5, pregnant with my 6th. And we came together because we're women, just like you, and we saw a need. So we created a platform and a community for women called Beyond the Red Tent.
Right.
And we're taking it one step further.
To TED Talks. So TED Talks is a space where you can come and learn from vetted experts, real women that are willing to share their courageous stories about topics of holistic women's health.
And so you're here. We understand life is full. You're a busy woman. So this is only going to be about 30 minutes of a beautiful talk with either an expert or a real woman like yourself. So grab a cup of tea, sit back, and enjoy.
Well, hello, Beyond the Red Tent community. Mariah Brown here, along with Missy and Courtney. This is part 3 of Courtney's journey around stage 4 ovarian cancer that started 9 years ago, and now she's here 5 years cancer-free. If you have not yet watched part 1 and part 2, please start there. They have been profound and emotional and educational and real and raw. So for this section, we're going to go into, there had been, was it 3 years of chemo and between Chicago and MD Anderson, and then someone said to you, this is done, we need to just put you into palliative care. What did that mean, and what happened at that point?
Sure. So I think I on the last segment, I alluded to the fact that, after so many different rounds of chemo, they start compiling and things start getting a little bit more severe with each added round. And so we were 10 rounds in, and it had reached a point where I literally was too sick to get out of bed. The only time I really got up was to go to the bathroom, to go downstairs to try to make something quick to eat, and to go to treatment. But other than that, I was pretty much in bed all of the time. And to give kind of a picture of it, in the beginning was 3. He had started kindergarten. So my kindergartner, he would go to school and he would come home, and before I could see him or I could hug him or be in the same room with him, my husband or the nanny would take him, strip his clothes, get him in the shower, keep his backpack outside of our house so that no germs could enter from school. And so literally that was all happening before I would get to see him, before I'd get to hug him and ask him how his day was. And that's how sick I was. That's how vulnerable I was to infection. And it had reached the point that we'd show up for chemo and we'd do that blood work, and they would say, not this week. My white blood cells were just non-existent, quite frankly. My liver enzymes were pretty high. I was in the beginning stages of what they would consider liver failure. And so it was time to have a meeting. And so my oncologist literally flew in from Houston to meet with my oncology team in Chicago. And we sat down in a big conference room and we had a discussion about what's next. What does this look like? And what are my options? And there was a lot of talk about things we were going to change for future chemo, ways that we could change things up. But first, my body needed a break. And we didn't really know how long of a break that would be. We didn't know how long it was going to take. We didn't know what it was going to look like. We just knew that my body was worn out and the chemo was at this point truly killing me. And so we that day signed paperwork to enter into palliative care. And what that meant was that I was no longer going to be receiving any form of medication to try to fight the cancer. I could have pain medication. I could have, whatever I might need to make me comfortable, to make sure that I was okay at home, but I was not actively fighting.
Did you feel defeated after that conversation?
I did. I walked in, I think, having a little bit, I didn't actually know what it was called, but I knew that we were going to have to take a break. I knew that we had done this enough, that my body was very sick and very tired and I needed rest. And so I will say that I remember walking into that meeting feeling like, this is it. This is where the fight stops. And I wasn't going to stop, but I knew that the medication was. And I prayed for hope. I prayed for a lot of hope as we entered that meeting. And I will say that it wasn't all bad that came from that meeting. Knowing what I know now, my body did need the rest. And it needed rest so that it could heal and it could rejuvenate, regenerate, so that I could get back to active treatment. But that was also my introduction. It was the first time anyone had ever asked me, how's your nutrition? It was.
And this was 3 years in?
This was, just, 3.5
it
years.
just makes me want to punch the wall.
It was about 3.5 years in.
So they finally asked. Oh.
And it was an intern that asked. To be really clear, she was like 20 something years old. I'd never seen her before, but she'd come in with my doctor and she asked me, how's your nutrition? And it was then and there that they said the things that would change my fight for the future. It completely transformed what I thought. And it gave me something else I could control, because we all know I was desperately seeking control. And so when they said to me, you have to fuel to fight, they gave me this image of an army, and they told me that my T cells literally were being put to sleep by the chemo. My T cells, my white cells, everything that fights for me in this army was literally being just put to sleep. And we needed to wake it up. We needed to wake up the army so that they could stand and they could fight for me. The chemo could do its job to the cancer cells, but that my body, my army needed to stand up and fight for me, for the healthy cells. And I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. Now what do I do?
And how were you eating prior to this? Were you kind of standard American diet, or?
Well, if I'm totally honest, I kind of joke about this. I was eating instant mashed potatoes. I'm sure the flakes had a whole lot of nutrition in them.
And I think I have the visual of those Ensure, like, junky drinks. Were they
I could never choke
stuff?
those down, but they gave them to me.
Okay.
I could never choke them down. We had, they actually tried another one called Boost. They tasted so bad I couldn't drink them. But that's what I could do. I wanted something warm. I wanted something soft. Everything tasted so bad. I had sores in my mouth. So that's what I ate. I ripped open a bag, added some water, stuck it in the microwave, and I ate it. It was really healthy. And so as we kind of talked through that and what nutrition actually looked like, the things that I could be using to fuel my fight, this theme kept reoccurring of plants. You need more plants. You need more whole food nutrition, more fruits, more vegetables. Well, I wasn't eating any fruits or vegetables. And so we talked about what I could do, how I could change my diet, what that might look like, especially given how difficult eating was for me. And it was then that my oncologist actually talked to me about these plant powders, these encapsulated plant powders that I could be taking every day, kind of like my easy button. It was nourishing my body when I couldn't nourish it. And it was allowing me to get the nutrition that my body desperately needed. And it had been studied. It had been studied by the hospital that I was being treated through. And so that was really, really impactful. It sounded a little weird, kind of sounded like you wanted me to have some astronaut food. but if I could take it, I was willing. And so I did. We started there. And then we started talking really about the importance of water and the importance of, okay, can we try to get a smoothie in? Could you make it and kind of make it like ice cream and just take a couple bites at a time? Would that be a possibility? And so I started making changes. I ditched the mashed potatoes, and I truly started trying anything I could to get more plants into my body.
Well, and like you said, at this point, it gives you something you can control, something you can do,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's an action step.
Yeah.
And we're in control.
Mm-hmm. It was anything I could do. And it shifts your mind because, again, it's what you focus on, right? I talked about it a little bit with, working full time. I was so busy and focused on the outside world and what all was happening within my job. I didn't really have time to look at myself as this really, really sick patient. Mm. And so this kind of gave me something else that I could obsess about, other than that I was sitting at home not getting any chemo treatment.
And so the big question is, how did that shift things for you?
Well, it shifted pretty drastically. My body woke up, and I began to fight. And so we monitored my blood work for palliative care. It was every 4 weeks we were monitoring my blood work. And the expectation was that I would be out of chemo a minimum of 4 to 5 months, which is why legally I had to sign palliative care paperwork. And so we went in, and I'm not going to tell you that I thought I saw anything drastic the first couple of blood tests. I didn't feel anything different, except maybe starting to feel a little better that I wasn't getting chemo. But by week 12, so it was our third blood work, I was released to return to chemo. My liver enzymes had dropped. My white blood cells were returning to within normal limits. My body was awake. It was ready. It was fueled.
Wow. And did you, at that time, so were you only eating a plant-based diet at that time, or were you eating some proteins just out of curiosity?
No, I was honestly living on smoothies. Mm-hmm. I still had such a horrible metallic taste in my mouth that I really struggled with eating. And so I was taking my plant powders and my capsules, and I was drinking a smoothie because that's what I could do.
And were you putting fruits and veggies into your smoothie?
I got spinach and I got bananas. I did. And I got some avocado in there and water or almond milk. And it was, I could make it really, really thick to where I could just take a couple bites at a time, or I could make it like just a regular old smoothie. But that was kind of what I was living on.
So how long did that journey last? Did you return to chemo after week 12?
I did. We exited palliative care. 3 months in, we exited. We started chemo again. And the difference was I had nutrition on my side this time. I had nutrition on my side. I was really learning about what it meant to rest. I was learning about other things that I could be doing for inflammation. I was doing these Epsom salt baths, and I was, seeing an acupuncturist, and I was really getting into this whole concept of how I needed to take care of me so that I could fight. And so it looked different this time. And when I went back to chemo, it looked different. My side effects were different. I wasn't near as sick as I had been before. Same drug, new me. And I wasn't married to my bathroom floor. I was still a little nauseous. I definitely still was a little tired. But what we found was that after chemo, 3 days after, I would report back and I would get this shot called Neulasta. And it was to help rebound my white blood cells. And would y'all believe that like 6 months in from completely transforming my diet, I didn't need it anymore. I didn't have to, like my body just was doing it myself. And so I didn't need anything to help me rebound. I didn't need something to make me better because my body was doing it on its own.
So when I talk to people who've gone through cancer treatment, and there's this common thread of, well, I was told I shouldn't eat raw produce, and you can't bring me flowers. I can't be around flowers. But here you were eating a lot of raw produce and encapsulated plants. How is that different? Or what do you say to those people who are getting a mixed message?
Well, I mean, I think here's the thing. I can remember my oncologist telling me there is not a fruit or a vegetable that you cannot eat. So eat as much of it as you can possibly eat. And so I tell people this all the time. I'm like, listen, this is your fuel. This is your fuel to your fight. So I want to know, what fruit and vegetable are you limited from? And if you're not limited from one, you better get after it. Eat as much of them as you possibly can. Because one thing that I remember coming from all of this was, we all hear, okay, you need 9 to 13 servings of raw fruits and vegetables. My oncologist told me I would need 24 servings of raw fruits and vegetables to combat what I was getting in chemo. It's like eating my dining room table and fruit and vegetables every day. I mean, for someone who wasn't even able to eat, a cup of green beans, the idea of eating my dining room table of them every day, it was overwhelming, but it's what I need. It's what my body needed. And where there's a will, there's a way. You find a way. And for me, I found that.
Go ahead, Mariah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, I'm conscious of time, and I want to get to, I mean, clearly, like we said in the last segment, here you are 5 years later, cancer-free. So how did that journey go after that last round of chemo? Where did it go from there? And
I
how
was going to ask the same exact question, and I was going to add in, I know, Courtney, because then you also went gluten-free and dairy-free and sugar-free and meat-free, correct? And that was a journey over time.
It was. That was a whole new world, I mean, when you're used to eating the standard American diet, and you're used to, cheese was my best friend. And maybe not during that, couple of years, but it was one of my favorite things. And so learning what these foods do and how they react in the body, it became a learning thing for me. It really became something that I was like a sponge, and I just wanted more and more and more. I wanted to understand it. I wanted to be able to see it. I wanted to visualize it. I wanted to really understand the role of nutrition and disease. And so once you have all of that in front of you, it's very hard to look at it and go, nah, that's not for me, and go back. So I knew I couldn't cold turkey everything, because knowing me, I would go back. So I just started one thing at a time. And for me, I started with sugar, because that was the thing, that was the message I kept getting loud and clear: sugar, sugar, sugar. So I started with sugar. And then I went to dairy, and I struggled a lot with dairy. And so it was just the slow, I can do it. Come on, you've done hard things. You can do this. And so, we've gotten to the point where as a family, we're in a very different place than we started. But it was a year and 2 months before we heard no evidence of disease. And
say it again.
Yeah, no evidence of disease.
But I'm thinking, okay, so a year and 2 months of good nutrition and treatment versus, was it 3 years or 2.5 years?
3.5 years.
3.5 years of bad nutrition and treatment that didn't work.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's huge.
Right. Yeah, it's been life-changing. And so it was, now it's been this race, right? Like now it's, well, you can't get to here. Oh yeah, I can, watch me. and so there's not a lot of stage 4s running around saying, I'm 3 years cancer free, I'm 5 years cancer free, I'm 10 years cancer free. There's very little of those. And so it's this milestone in my head. It's kind of like running the race. There's been this milestone in my head. I had to get to a year, and then I had to get to 2. And once I hit 2, it was like, I got to get to 5. And so we're months away from 5. April 13th will be 5 years since we've heard no evidence of disease. And it's been, do you hear my husband? He's like, looking good.
Looking good.
So it's been just this amazing journey of, I knew I could do it.
And so how old are your boys now?
9 and 12.
And I think we're going to talk more in another segment, another day, about the journey your boys went through as you were going through this journey, and how it impacted not only you, but your husband and your children, and where you are, what it looked like as a family to go through this, because we're units, and we don't go through something like this in isolation. So I'm really excited to hear that conversation, because I think that can be really helpful to a lot of people as well. And there's so many women that are going through cancer battles, and
there are.
So grateful that you shared this beautiful story of hope and gave some really good information that people maybe haven't heard from their doctors. And if you didn't hear it, others aren't hearing it, right?
Right. I think there's so many that, what I've learned about medicine is that they're trained to treat disease. They're not trained to prevent disease. And they are trained to look at these medications and all the things that they can do from a medical standpoint. But my body, our bodies, they're healing machines. Like they're meant to heal. They know what to do. We have to trust them, and we have to nourish them. Just like we have to nourish our minds and our hearts and our relationships. We have to do that too for the body that we've been given. And when we began to do that, it's amazing what can happen.
And so what is it like today, existing in your body? Are the neuropathies gone? How's your energy? What's the marriage like? Have your finances recovered? How's your mindset? How's your fight? Do you fight in areas of your life different today than you used to fight? I mean, I imagine you must feel so powerful. But what is life like today?
Yeah, it's a different world today. It's like, I feel like I've been given this new lease on life. I've been given this second chance. And so I'm like, I better use this time well. I better, I feel like I just want to pay it forward. Like what I've learned, I want other people to know. It's so important. Like it can change your fight. It could change your life or someone you love. And I want people to understand how important it is to love not only the body you've been given, but to love who you are and to truly honor who you are, to become your best self. Like I get goosebumps saying it because it's so important to me. There were so many places in my life that I didn't honor myself, that I didn't love myself, that I didn't respect myself, but I respect my fight. I respect my journey. I'm grateful, actually, for my journey because it's led me to who I am today. I believe I'm a better mother. I believe I'm a better wife, a better friend, better leader, a better human because of it. And we're on the mend. Everything is beginning to heal, and there are things that stick with you. There's obviously pain points that are very hard to go back through, but I feel like I just feel this overwhelming sense of gratitude.
I do too. For you, I'm so grateful for you, Courtney.
Thank you.
I'm grateful for your fight. I'm grateful that your children get to know their mom. She's fallen asleep in the midst of this conversation. I'm grateful
Sweet
for your
sleep.
courage to share and for your time today. I'm grateful for what you do on the planet today.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so grateful that I was able to share with you. Thank you so much for asking. Thanks for seeing me in my journey.
We're going to share this with the world, my friend.
Yes. So if you're watching this back, again, thank you, Courtney. And hopefully you've watched part 1 and 2. This is part 3. You can find all 3 parts on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't watched one of them, that's where you can go to find that. And I'm sure that link will be above this video. We want to let you know that we're going to come back into our Facebook group and our Facebook page after this has aired. And we're going to go live with Courtney so that you can ask her your questions. So be on the lookout for that. Pay attention to our Facebook page and you'll see a graphic. We'll let you know when that's going to happen. So if you're someone who is going through treatment, or maybe you just got diagnosed, or maybe someone you love just got diagnosed, you can come and you can ask Courtney some questions, and I'm sure she'll have beautiful answers for you. And we're looking forward to seeing you again, Courtney.
Thank you so much. I can't wait for next time.
Thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe.
And if you also want to take a peek at our website, it's right here.